You know how some plants act like divas? These are not those plants. These are the ones that do their job, grow without complaint, and provide a huge harvest with almost no effort. Welcome back, friend. Today we're going to be talking about turmeric and ginger. If you are new here, my name is Patrina and I am with Homegrown Florida. Now, one of the reasons why turmeric and ginger is one of the easiest plants that you can grow here in Florida or in one of the southern states is, number one, it is a perennial. It can grow during our hottest part of our summers, and in fact, it actually really enjoys that. It can grow in full sun or part shade. It can grow in our sandy soil or in raised beds. It's pretty versatile, and it doesn't really need a lot of anything. A small amount of nutrition will get it by and allow it to produce, and if you don't want to deal with it and you just want to use it as an ornamental, you can just leave it in the ground. The tops will die back in winter, and then it just regrows. It is so simple. Another really cool thing about this plant and what makes it so easy is how you actually plant it. So you can go and purchase ginger roots or turmeric roots that are a certain variety. In fact, that is one of the ones that I'm harvesting here is called a black turmeric. It's actually blue, but they call it black turmeric, and it is really good medicinal plant. So I did order that special from Green Dreams. It's greendreamsfl.com. But you can literally just go to the grocery store, try to find organic roots of turmeric and ginger, and just plant those. And that's actually what I did with the typical edible ginger that I grew here, as well as the common orange turmeric that I grew. I went to the store, I found some organic roots, and then I put them in a pot, these pots that you see here. I filled it all the way up with soil, and I laid them kind of on their side, half buried. I do this with sweet potatoes as well to get them to sprout. Now, same kind of goes with the ginger and the turmeric. I used to bury them, and I had like really poor sprouting from it. I don't think they like any form of being completely buried. They kind of just want the half of their root underground and the other half peeking out from the top. I'm not sure why they like that, but some root vegetables like that, and they happen to be one of them, and they always sprouted for me that way now. When you get the roots from the store, you don't have to be super gentle with them. You can actually just snap them into pieces that are maybe, an inch or two long, and then just plant those individually. Now, you do want to give them a little bit of space. I have noticed that when I planted them too close together, the roots that I harvested were much smaller. This is particularly with my black turmeric. It does produce a lot less when you plant them too closely. So in those round pots that you see there, I actually planted just one plant of each, and I had much better results in there than I did in the square pot where I had like 3 plants in there. And then in the raised bed that we harvested just a few minutes ago, I had like a bunch of them planted right into each other, and it was way too close. So at least 12 to 18 inches, I would say. I forgot to mention, they grow really well in ground or in raised beds or in pots. I actually like growing them in pots because the harvesting is easier. Earlier, I was struggling a little bit with trying to get them out of that raised bed because the roots really dig down deep. But with a pot, you don't have to deal with that. But you can really just do whatever you like, since they do seem to grow however they want to grow. To take care of them, they do seem to like a lot of water, so I did water mine along with all my other plants on a regular schedule. I usually do every 5 days during the winter and early spring and late fall. But when I start getting into the hotter temperatures, when we're in the 80s or above every single day, I move to every 2 or 3 days. I'm really looking for when my moisture meter is telling me that the soil is starting to dry out in those top 2 or 3 inches, and that's when I water it. In terms of feeding it, I think I fed it twice in the time that I was growing it. I fed it once it started sprouting, so that was probably mid-spring, and then I fed it again late summer. No need to feed it in fall or winter when the leaves are starting to look a little crappy or when they're starting to die back. They don't need any food at that point. But during their heavy growing season, during spring and summer, that's when you want to feed them. And all I fed them with was I'd put down some fertilizer, some granular fertilizer, and all-purpose, I think it might have been garden tone, into the soil. And then throughout the growing season, those 2 times I used fish fertilizer. I believe I used Alaska's fish fertilizer, so I went with a more nitrogen heavy instead of phosphorus or potassium heavy. It was just, I don't know if that is like the perfect way to do it, but I did hear from a lot of other growers that they do like a decent amount of nitrogen. So I did that and I got a really good harvest this year, especially compared to my harvest from last year. You can tell that I am getting better at this growing of ginger and turmeric. It's getting a lot easier and a lot less complex in taking care of it. My least favorite part of growing ginger and turmeric is actually the cleaning aspect. Harvesting is really fun, but man, are they kind of not fun to get cleaned up. I sit here and I squat for like an hour trying to spray off as much of the dirt and soil as possible. They're falling apart. They've got all these little roots that you got to cut off. It's not the most fun, but it is kind of cool to have these beautiful roots all cleaned up with no dirt. Although it does take multiple soakings and washing and soaking and washing, and then here I am with the scissors trying to cut off all of those roots, which are really, really thick. It smells wonderful while I'm doing it, but in the turmeric, my hands are turning blue from the black turmeric, or my hands are turning orange from the orange turmeric. It's just, and then you have like this dirt that just doesn't want to come off, so you kind of got to let it dry for a day or two, and then you can kind of, it's just painful. But look at this. This was the orange turmeric that I grew. Look at that one. That's just one plant. That's probably all the turmeric that we'll eat in a year. We don't eat a lot of it. We use it in like chicken soup or for medicinal stuff. This is, I believe that's the blue turmeric. Yep, you can see the blue right there. I keep calling it blue, but it's actually called black turmeric. It's a medicinal plant. It tastes just like regular turmeric, maybe not as strong. I actually find the flavor to be more pleasant. I'm not a big turmeric fan, but this is my ginger. Look at my ginger. This is what I'm excited about because I've been wanting to grow ginger like this for years, and I finally got it done. Now that we have it all cleaned up and I let it dry out for a day, we're going to chop it up because we are going to be preserving this ginger and this turmeric in 3 different ways. I am going to freeze dry all of them, and just be aware you can do a lot of this in a dehydrator. So if you don't have a freeze dryer, no worries. This does translate to dehydration. Just, you're going to lose some of the medicinal qualities if you are growing this as a medicinal plant. So my black turmeric, blue black, whatever you want to call it. This one, it was especially important to me to maintain as much of the nutrition and vitamins as possible. So that's why I ended up going with freeze drying. So all I'm doing with this one is chopping it up. I let it dry for a day just to make the cleaning process a little bit easier. And then I'm just going to chop it into these little slices, and I'm going to stick it on a freeze dryer tray. And this is how I'm going to preserve it. It's going to go in jars at the end of this process. And whenever I need it, like if I want to use it in fire cider, or if I want to use it in tea for when we're sick, I can just take this, drop this into the liquid, and it will reabsorb. And with freeze drying, I don't know if you know this, but freeze drying maintains somewhere between 90 and 95% of the nutritional benefits of food, even while preserving it for up to 30 years. So I still have some of this from last year that I haven't used, and now I have, this is a lot for us. This is a large amount for us. That's probably between what we have last year and this year. I'm probably good for about 3 years. So I'm probably not going to grow this anymore, or at least not anytime soon. Now the ginger, on the other hand, we use a lot more often, especially in cooking. I love Asian cuisine, so for me, like, ginger is a big part of that. And so we're going to chop this up. I'm going to get it into smaller pieces so that we can mince it up in a food processor, because what I want to do is I want to freeze dry, but you can dehydrate minced ginger. Last year, I minced the ginger up put it in ice cube trays, and then filled it with oil. And I still have some of that in my freezer, but that only lasts for a year. So when I was thinking about this time, once again, I want to maintain as much of the flavor as possible, and the freezer does do that. So if you're interested in that, but the freezer starts to get weird after about a year. You get some of the frost on it, and it starts to lose some of its flavor, and I realized that we just don't eat it as much as I thought we did. And so this amount right here is going to take us a little while to get through. So I want to freeze dry it to maintain the flavor and the nutritional benefits in a minced form, so that whenever I want to use it, like in a stir fry or something, I can drop it in my stir fry sauce. Like if I'm making a teriyaki, it's just like soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, and brown sugar, and then you would just add a little bit of water to that, and then drop the freeze-dried minced ginger into that, and it will just reabsorb right there, and then you can just cook with it immediately. So that is my plan for this. I still have to go through the freezer stuff first, so I'm going to go through that, and then these guys are going to go into a glass jar minced, and I can just take out what I need. I'm probably still going to grow this plant, even though this is a significant amount for us. We don't use a lot. But my husband's been getting into ginger tea. He does a ginger honey tea. So maybe we might increase our use this year. But if not, I want this to be freeze dried so that it lasts for a really long time. Now this ginger was really like hard to cut through. Like the root was very, very thick, and I'm not used to that. Like grocery store ginger doesn't seem so hard in the center. It almost felt kind of woody. But it still had the great smell and stuff. So I don't know if it's just because it was a bit bigger, or maybe it's the variety. I'm not sure, but it did turn out great. I did try some. It's not woody in the center. It's not fibrous or anything like that I was worried about, but it was a little hard to cut. Maybe I need to sharpen my knives. That might help. Now, when it comes to the orange turmeric, it's going to be very similar. I am going to mince it up like I did the ginger, and we are going to freeze dry that. But when I'm done with that, I am going to take it down even further and make it into a powder, so that it's a turmeric powder, freeze-dried turmeric powder. This one, I swear, I washed it so many times. I scrubbed it, I allowed it to dry, I brushed it off, and as I'm cutting it here, I'm seeing that there's still like a significant amount of dirt on here. So no worries, guys. After I cut this all up, I let it soak. I don't think I showed that here in the video, but trust me, I did. I let it soak a little bit longer, and it was actually easier to clean once it was cut up, because when it was not cut up, all the little fingers and stuff had little crevices in places. But I think I got it probably 98% clean. Whenever you're working with turmeric, you really have to be fast, because turmeric stains everything. And it was staining my cutting board, staining my knife, staining my hands, staining my food processor. And I thought to myself, like, I know how to get it out of that stuff, but the stainless steel trays of the freeze dryer, I was kind of worried it would stain that. So I ended up going with some paper. Now they sell silicone mats and stuff that you can use in your freeze dryer, but I never bought those because I feel like I can just use the paper. I use this parchment paper for my sourdough, so I'm like, okay, I'll just use parchment paper, and it worked just fine. I was a little worried about it because I'd never used parchment paper in my freeze dryer, but it did work fine, and it kept the orange color off of everything, or at least the stainless steel trays. You can see my food processor here is so yellow. Okay, so let me tell you my tricks of how to get rid of some of the yellow color or orange color from turmeric. First things first, leave everything where it's at and go immediate clean. Dawn dishwashing soap works really, really well. It got it off my cutting board, it got it off my knife, and it got probably about 75% of the color off of my food processor. But then it wasn't coming off the food processor. And this had happened to me before with the blender. And my blender has like this yellowish tint now, and I really hate it. And I didn't want that to happen to my food processor here. So I started Googling, like, how do you get it out? And some people said soak it in a bleach and water mixture. So I did that. It didn't go away. And then one person had this crazy idea I thought it was really interesting, was just go set it out in the sun for a day or two. And I thought, that can't work. Yeah, I went and put it on my pool deck and set it right by the pool in the sun for a day. And when I walked out the next day, I happened to look at it and it was completely white. Well, not white, clear. It was completely clear. The yellow orange color was completely gone. I don't know if it was the combination of bleaching it and then putting it out there or if it just was the sunlight. But yeah, that works. So if you're having trouble with turmeric and getting it out, that's how you do it. So we freeze dried. It didn't take long. I think this was a total of about 18 to 20 hours. If you're going to use a dehydrator, you're going to want to do the lower the temperature, the more nutrients that you're going to hold. So somewhere between 90 and 110 degrees, but you're going to be looking at a longer period of time. It could be 24 to 48 hours, depending on how thick you cut it. If you left it as thick as like I have here, you're going to be dehydrating for a lot longer. The freeze dryer is a little more efficient in that manner. So make sure that you're grinding it down as small as possible or cutting your slices as thin as possible so that you can dehydrate it quicker, like in a 24-hour period versus the 48 to 36 hours. Now, proper storage is important too. So when it comes to freeze drying, I do it one of two ways. If I'm going to use it within about 3 to 5 years, I will do a glass jar. I think it's just easier. And if it's 1 year, I don't even put an oxygen absorber in it. I just use my vacuum sealer and put them in the jars. But these guys might be a little while, so I do put oxygen absorbers into these jars and I seal it with the vacuum sealer. Now, if you're dehydrating, I would suggest going with a dry pack. Is it called a decedent pack? I'm not sure. Just those little dry packs that keep moisture out. That's incredibly important in a place like Florida where we get a lot of moisture. But if you are doing freeze drying, you don't want to use a dry packet with a oxygen absorber. They kind of cancel each other out. They don't do some damage there. So only oxygen absorber and, vacuum seal it shut with the oxygen absorber in there. A more traditional way of storing freeze-dried foods is going to be in Mylar. And this is what I usually use for something that I expect to last more than just 5 years. If we're not going to eat it right away or I'm not sure when we're going to eat it, I go with Mylar. I use a 7mm Mylar. I use the ones basically from Harvest Right, which is where I got my freeze dryer from. If you're interested in supporting the channel and you've been thinking about getting a freeze dryer, make sure to check out the link in my description. I do earn a little percentage there whenever you purchase through them using my link at no extra cost to you, but it's a great way to support the channel. If you're interested, if that's something that you've been considering, I would really appreciate it. When you use the 7mm Mylar bags, those are the ones that are designed to hold food and nutrients for like the full 30 years. Those are what a lot of like the hardcore freeze dryers use, and I strongly recommend them and I do use them. But like I said, these things I don't expect to maintain longer than, the next 3 years is what I'm suspecting. I mean, look at all that turmeric I grew and look how little of an amount here. This is just a powder. It's a tiny amount of powder. I think it's so crazy. But that tiny amount of powder we should go through very, very quickly. So I'm not going to use up a Mylar bag, which can be kind of expensive, to house this turmeric. We're just going to use glass jars. But if you do plan on using the food or holding the food for much longer, you definitely want to go the Mylar route. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today as we harvested and talked all about ginger and turmeric. Is it something that you're planning on growing in your garden? Head down in the comments and let me know. I'm curious how many of you guys are going to give it a shot. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Happy gardening and happy preserving.